You're listening to the Beyond the Prophy podcast, where we help you out of career burnout so that you can reclaim your personal freedom while pursuing your passion. I'm your host, Jasmine Haley, entrepreneur, influencer, and educator that will help empower you with our interviews, strategies, and straight talks. If you're ready to push past your comfort zone to your greatness, you have found the right podcast. Stay tuned and listen in. Hey. We're here for another episode of Beyond the Prophy Straight Talk. I am so happy to be back for season 3. Yeah. We started in 2017. And it has been remarkable, the response, the number of downloads we've had. I mean, I am so stoked over how much growth we've had. But, there's going to be a lot of changes. And the reason for these changes is because this podcast isn't about, for me, basically talking just to hear myself talk. It's for each of you. So one of the things that people don't realize is that all podcasters at some point are going to be checking their reviews. And, listen, I haven't held anything back from each of you. I have been bootstrapping my business, okay? Because I've got 2 kids to feed. I've got a husband that works really super duper hard. So I'm not trying to make any additional steps or financial barriers to our family. So I've started Beyond the Prophy with nothing, y'all. And it's grown a lot because of hard work and sweat and just working nonstop. But I've had to cut corners in some ways when it comes to getting the biggest and best type of, equipment. I have mostly self-sponsored myself. I've gotten very little sponsorship here and there from individuals. It hasn't been enough to really make a dent on my responsibilities. And so one of the things that I've kind of cut corners with, and of course, this will make any podcasting guru out there get sick to their stomach. I've cut corners when it comes to the sound. And I just said, you know what? It's good information. People can deal with it. But you know what? You guys were like, I'm done, Jazz. Enough is enough. So someone wrote on the review and said, hey, this is great content, but, hopefully should get some sponsorship and get some better sound. Well, hasn't come, but it hasn't come enough for me to get the equipment that I need. But gratefully, I've gone ahead and used my money and have basically taken the time to upgrade my equipment. And hopefully, there'll be no excuse left for people to take forth this information. So I'm going to start my first straight talk for season 3 about balancing and raising a family and being an entrepreneur. Let me tell you something. For most of y'all who are dental professionals, and I'm not gearing this any more specifically to dental professionals because the lessons I'm talking about can really help anyone in their life and in their particular journey. So, okay, being a mom and being a entrepreneur is no joke. And I often struggle with the aspects of having my identity as Jasmine, having my identity as a wife, as a mother, and then as an entrepreneur. Most of you who are not entrepreneurs, who do listen to this podcast, you get a chance to go to your job. And I'm not trying to minimize what you're doing, but you go to your job, you do your work, you provide the services that you're supposed to provide, you do the tasks that you are responsible for, then you clock out and then you go home. Being an entrepreneur doesn't end. It's 24/7. And, one of the struggles I had being an entrepreneur was being in a place where I needed to shut off. But unfortunately, when you're a solopreneur, especially those first couple of years, it hasn't even been 5 years for me yet. I have to do everything. I was in a position where I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't do it, it's not getting done. So what is it that I need to do now? And so it was like, oh my gosh, I've got to take care of my kids. I may have to take them to swim class. I may have to go to this religious observance. I have to clean the kitchen. I've got to take care of my husband's needs. It was nonstop. And I was just feeling like, just totally in the pits. But yet still feeling that inkling of satisfaction and joy and seeing some of the fruits of my labor really grow and really be in a place where I started hearing like from people who were taking part in my services or coming to my courses, and they were feeling like, wow, thank you so much. This really impacted my life. And so of course that was like, okay, I'm making a difference. I'm finally making the difference I know that I was born to make and do in this industry or in this world in general. So I actually have, some tips based on some research that I found, and I found a really awesome Forbes article that I kind of want to talk about today and talk about the seriousness that comes into play when you're balancing a career while caring for children. And, it's just a whole nother layer of challenge that occurs. And here's the thing. I love my children, but I'm a better mom by having something separate from myself. I could not deny my identity to care for my children. I would be miserable. I would be irritable. I would not be a happy person. And my kids deserve to have a happy mom that's also willing to make the sacrifices necessary to not be always 100% on for their business, but also can be there as a parent. And I want my daughters to see that it is possible, but there are some sacrifices that have to be made on both ends in order for us to all be in a place where we feel good. So there are some ways in which you can balance being a parent and entrepreneur. And this Forbes article, which I'm going to put in the show notes, actually has some really good pointers. And I kind of want to talk about them with you. So the first one is learning how to delegate and know your boundaries. Say what? Yeah, there is it's really hard for me coming from a single parent household with a mom, right? And being in a position where I was always so used to kind of taking care of things at an early age. So it wouldn't be too much on my mother's plate. And so I didn't really delegate or understand the concept of delegating. I was just like, I'm going to get it done. I got to do what I got to do. I can't be sitting around being upset about anything or wishing that I had this and that. I just got to get the work done. But what happens is that in developing that at a very young age and continuously being that way, what does it do? It makes you feel like you have to be 100% at all times. Like there's no break. And what does that lead to? It leads to burnout. And let me tell you, I've experienced that quite a bit. So now I'm at a place now, like I just recently hired someone to help me with organization of my office. I couldn't handle, it's just some things got to go, right? Sometimes it's the laundry, not doing the laundry. Mine was not organizing the papers I had for the last 3 years or so. And I had to hire someone to help me in that process. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? And so that was me delegating a task for me. Some people, like I've heard Ray talk about, hiring a nanny. I haven't gotten to that point because I've had a babysitter that's kind of helped with dropping them off. Now that's help, but never a full-time living nanny. She's also talked about having people clean your house. I've researched that, haven't quite hit the, go button. So I'm in the process of doing that. But what I will say is that I have delegated where I need to. So we have a sitter come and she will drop off the kids 3 days out of the week to school. And doing that in the morning allows me to start my work early and then end my work early so that they won't have mommy working into long hours. So that's one of the things that has been really huge to helping me find that balance, because for me, we don't have any family that lives near us to help us with our children. So we rely on other services and, getting favors from friends or people in our congregation. And so that for us was a huge deal, feeling totally safe all the time. And so learning to delegate and knowing your boundaries and knowing when you kind of need a break is necessary. So here's the second one that really resonated with me. And this one is about prioritizing well-being, adopting the ability to make relaxation practices and mindfulness a part of your everyday practice. Hello. Yes. I can't say that enough. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in the 10 years of being a momgenist is the importance of prioritizing my mental health. So if I need to take every 3 weeks a set time for me to go get my nails done, or to set some time for me to just think straight without the kids busting up stuff as if it sounds like there's some elephants running around the house, I got to do what I got to do. I listen to Audible books. I find a time for me to kind of separate myself and kind of take a walk if I need to, because even though I do work from home now, exclusively from home, I still need to find those times to relax, because Lord knows that these kids do not need a mother that is so on edge because she's not taking the time to practice mindfulness or some sort of relaxation. We need it. We need it to reset ourselves, and our kids need that as well. We can get more done. We can be more efficient at what we do when we take that time to make sure that we are getting at least 10, even if it's 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Take that time where you can draw into yourself, center into yourself. It's almost like a spiritual practice also, because it requires you to do really deep self-reflection and really tuning into what's important. And that's why gratefulness is such a big practice for me. And it may not be a big practice as where I'm writing out a 5-page letter, but I do take the time to sit down and write cards of appreciation for individuals. And I take time to, sit and think of the blessings I've had. Now, let me really, really let y'all know that this is straight talk, and sometimes that don't work, boo-boo. So, there are times where you're like, all right, enough of that. Like, I can't tell you how many times someone may have said to me, well, this is like one of those low points. Well, girl, just make sure you pray about it. Make sure you read the Bible, or make sure you, you got to do some meditation. You got to do that. And when you are really low, you ain't trying to hear that. I know I'm not trying to hear that. And I know that I'm like, if they don't get up out of here, I felt like I wasn't being heard. And so sometimes even those practices of kind of pausing and being okay with pausing may mean that you just need someone that you can vent to, that you can share that with. And they don't really have that up here right now, but I would say having a friendship, not just with yourself, but with another mama or another parent that kind of understands the role that you're going through. They may not understand entrepreneurship, but I tell you, when you feel like you're in a community, when you feel like your voice is being heard, when you feel like you have that ability to kind of let go and be able to release in a way that you don't get a chance to, it means the world. It means the world to you. So the next one is control your calendar and don't let it control you. Can we get an amen up in here? One of the things that I do is I use Calendly. Calendly.com. And I schedule only certain days for conference calls, only certain days for work. And Saturday and Sunday, I'm done. I'm done. I mute everything off except for Voxer. I may keep that on for a little bit, but I'm okay with not opening my laptop. And it feels amazing. This past weekend was so great. I went to the mall with my friend Christy and her daughter and my 2 girls, and I didn't have my laptop with me. We were just being present and just not being controlled by the next task or the next email, the next thing coming through. And so, sectioning out that time for yourself is necessary. And sectioning out that time where it's just you and your kids, or you as your husband, may be necessary for you, because you should be you should be controlling your calendar. It shouldn't be the calendar controlling you. And so I no longer allow the calendar to tell me what's the next step for me. I'm the one that's saying, okay, only from this time and this time am I doing this, and from this time and that time am I doing that. And that's it. There's no going around that. There are times where I may switch it up or change it due to my schedule. But what I love about Calendly is that I'm able to section out only certain days where I may need to alter my schedule, and it won't change for the rest of the year. And so that is one of the features and why I switched from youcanbookme.me to Calendly, because I felt like their software was allowing me to make some changes to it that I didn't feel like, oh, I'm at a loss. I can't do anything with this. If I make a change, it's going to affect my entire year. And it's not like that. I'm able to switch it out wherever I need to. One of the things that I also think is really important is extending yourself some grace when it comes to being a mother or a dad and an entrepreneur, because there are going to be days that are not going to be 100% balanced. And that was one of the things that they featured on this Forbes article. That is so true. It's not going to be ever 100% balanced, or to the point where you feel like you've got everything right. You've got everything solved. It's just not going to happen. And so I have to extend myself grace on the days that it just doesn't work. Like, hey, mommy can't get this done for you, but we're going to make sure that we are having fun at least together at some point, or maybe it's Chick-fil-A for tonight, and it's not going to be this perfect dinner, that my husband may have the time to cook or I may put together. It is what it is. As long as we're safe, as long as we're loved, as long as we are still supporting each other, that is so important to me. And so I know I needed to extend that grace to myself, because when you are type A personality and you are going about and you're doing things day to day and you're used to achieving and doing things well, you start expecting out of yourself perfection sometimes. It's so easy to get in that negative thinking of perfectionism, where there's no such thing as something being perfect. And so extending that grace to myself and knowing that mommy isn't always going to get it right as an entrepreneur. Mommy isn't always going to get it right as a wife. Mommy isn't always going to get it right as a mother. But I know that I love my children. I know that they love me. I love my husband dearly. And as long as I'm aware of that and I'm consistently trying to work towards being the best I can be while also honoring who I am as a person, then I know that we're all doing the best we can. And when we keep that in mind, it helps give you a sense of peace. And so one of the things that I appreciate about this particular note from this article was that, there are societal pressures that come. I've talked to people about this on the podcast. Other people have denied that it exists, but I know for sure it does. A lot of people have often asked me, hey, Jasmine, how are your kids? How are they coping with you traveling? And I'm like, they're fine. They're with their dad. They are doing just well. Guess who's with the children 7 days out of the week when I'm not traveling? It's mommy. Mommy has to take care of that. Mommy has to do all the appointments. Mommy has to take care of their, needs and all of their needs, because my husband works and I support him as his wife. But when mommy has to leave and go to work, which means that I may have to travel out of the state to go speak, because I am a brand and I am focused on making an impact on a global scale with the populations that I'm most passionate about, mommy's gonna go and the kids are gonna be just fine. So that is something that Clarence and my husband and I had to work towards, so he could understand what kind of woman I am and what was necessary for my happiness, and for the happiness of the entire family. When I was at home when the children were first born, and I was taking care of them and kind of working, I lost my identity. I lost it completely. And I fell into a major depression. And at that time, I thought it was just, oh, is it postpartum? I didn't even understand what it was at that point. I just thought that, this is it. This is what it's supposed to be. But it really became because I lost myself. And I didn't find myself until many years later. So the woman that's standing before you now that's able to make the impact that I'm making is because I took the time to dive in deep and get to know who I am, but also to find a way to create boundaries that are needed for my family and for me as a wife, but also the boundaries necessary for me personally, and for me to also to achieve my goals. And so I wouldn't do it any other way. I don't knock any woman or man who decides to work full time for their family and do nothing else. Many blessings to them, but I know what works for me. And so if you are someone that's like me, if you're an entrepreneur yourself, if you're a parent, I hope that some of this message resonates with you. I hope you take a chance to take a look at this article from Forbes and you take the time to really determine what's best for you and your family and nobody else, because it is not about anybody else except for your family. So thanks for listening to this week's Straight Talk. I will be talking to all of you soon in our next episode. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to the show. We value each and every one of you. Dive in deeper by visiting the show notes for this episode or listening to more episodes on beyondtheprophy.com. If you found value in the show, share with a friend and leave us a review. We will see you next time, BTP family.